All right, everybody, welcome to Team Building Tuesday. Don Martin here. And tonight we're going to talk about probably, if there was one topic that is head and shoulders more important than any other topic in the business, it would be this one. This topic is the lifeline of the business, the bloodline of the business. It's the bullseye when you're building the business to know if you're effectively growing and if you're doing the right things. It is what causes the most duplication in the business. It's a litmus test to know if you're doing the business right. And it's what we call building from event to event. This right here is head and shoulders again, above and beyond. It's more important than any other aspect that we have in building this business. Building from event to event. So let me just talk about why first, and I'm going to talk about a system to do it. With our business, there's a few things that have to happen for people. This is one of the number one, first and foremost, this is one of the few things that you can get started that actually takes some skill to build, but you can start before you have the skill. Meaning you can start the business and become a part of the business before you get the education, if that makes sense, right? So you can get into business and not have any prior education. And this is a business that can create six figures and millions of dollars. It's a profession. It's no different from a professional standpoint than I'd say being in regards to a profession of the ability to be a professional. It's no different than like being a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or whatever, anything that you would consider to be a professional occupation. This is a professional occupation because it can make six figures and beyond, millions of dollars. But this is one of the only ones, I think it is the only one that you can actually start before you learn. Meaning you don't have to have prior education to start. But here's the thing, the qualifier. You must have education for it to work. You just are allowed or permitted to get started before you're educated, which any other profession in the world requires that you be educated first to qualify to become, and involved in any other profession besides this business. So understand that although you're not required, you do need the training in order to know how to professionally handle an unfranchised business to create a professional income. So event attendance and plugging into the educational system and process is the most important thing we do in the entire business, because you can learn, but you can learn while you earn instead of having to learn before you're able to go out and earn. So you can earn while you learn and build that solid foundation of knowledge and systems. So building from event to event is what makes this, because that's important and that's the most important aspect of the business. We have to focus on that, and that is the bullseye, the lifeline, the head. It's head and shoulders more important than anything else that we do in the business, because it's a litmus test if we're doing the right things or not. You could get started, and this is what I mean. You could get started in the business, and I'm going to tell you why this is the case, right? But you can get started in the business, and you might bring on partners, and you might have customers. But if you don't have partners attending the live trainings, the local seminars, and the conferences, the international conventions, all you have is an organization of wholesale customers. Let me repeat, and I'm not saying this this is not meant to be derogatory in any stretch of the imagination. But if you have people that come into business and they're not plugging into the trainings, they are not an official unfranchised owner. They're not an educated unfranchised owner. They are a wholesale customer. That's all they are. They're not a business partner of yours because they don't know what they're doing. They're not educated to know what they're doing, and they can't do it without you because they haven't gone through the processes that they need to be empowered to handle the business. So always keep that in mind. No matter what you do from a recruiting standpoint, bring people on and all that kind of stuff, the litmus test, if you're doing it right, are the people that you bring into the business attending a local seminar every 6 or so weeks, and then every 6 months or so, they're attending the big conference, the international convention. Right now, it's all virtual. Eventually, we'll be back to normal, and we'll do it live and in person, and maybe some hybrid. a little bit of both. But that is the litmus test. That is the bullseye again. That's the lifeline. That is where duplication happens. And that is also, here's some of the reasons why it's so important. That is where someone goes from being in your business with you to being in their own business. That's where they take ownership. Like, holy crap, I can really do this, because they're not only going to hear and cement all the information that they were learning by listening to audios every day and being on a few interactive Zooms every week, and being at the UBPs or whatever, but it's cemented in their mind every single 6 weeks or so, 4 to 6 weeks, when they attend this conference, because that is really driving it home, right? And it's validating all the information that we're learning on audios and Zoom interactions when you go to those local seminars. It also builds belief, because you're seeing other people at those conferences, even if they're virtual, you're seeing other people that have done it. And a lot of times you'll notice, man, I'm smarter than that guy, and he's making $15,000 to $18,000 a month. Like, I know I can do it now. It takes that level of belief to a whole nother level. Another thing about attending events is that when you attend a seminar on the weekend, and especially a conference, an international convention or a world conference, right? You actually get 6 months to a year's worth of training in a weekend. You get a 6 months to a year's worth of training, confidence, knowledge in a weekend. It would have taken that much time just trying to learn on your own, right? To get the amount of information you get in one concentrated weekend, whether it's a single day event like a local, or a large weekend event like a corporate event. It's concentrated, so it's delivered to you at a greater level, especially because it's being delivered by JR, the CEO of the company, when you go to the big conferences, for example, or a $1 million club member at a local seminar event. You're learning it from the best who know it, and it always is absorbed and processed differently in your mind when you go to a large event that is held to be really concentrated with people. So again, people who don't consistently attend these training conferences are simply wholesale customers. Now, I know a lot of times people will say, well, Don, I don't need trainings. I'm listening to audios. I'm getting all the information. I don't need motivation. I don't need to build belief. I have all the belief I need. If that were the case and you didn't need it yourself, let me just tell you this. You still need to go, and here's why. Even if you don't need the information and knowledge and education, and because you already have it, if you don't go, your team won't go. Does that make sense? And 95% of your team absolutely is going to need it. So if you don't go, people will do what you do, not what you say. So then they won't go. They won't know how to build it. They won't have the confidence. They won't have the belief. They won't have the mindset. They won't be a part of the community. All those things contribute to the reason why people need to be there. And they'll just think you made it, you're making because you're smarter than them. And that being said, guess what happens? They'll end up disappearing. And because you didn't think you needed it, all of a sudden your team disappears because they needed it, but they won't go unless you do. So it is the most important example that we need to set in the business. I don't ever miss an event, guys. Do you think I need to go to trainings for my own personal knowledge and confidence and belief? Now I've made millions. No, I really don't, personally. But at the same time, every time I go, I'm glad I did, because I actually realized that I actually did need it. Even though I've made millions in the business, I still need it, right? Even though you might think I don't, and sometimes I think I don't, and then I realize every time I go, I need it anyway. And the most important thing is, if I didn't go, guess what happened with my brand new people? They would always follow the path of least resistance. If I had an excuse not to be there, they'd find an excuse not to be there, and it would duplicate improperly. So I hope that makes a lot of sense. No matter what happens, and I'm going to show you how this is so imperative and how it becomes the most duplicatable thing we do. It creates duplication. It also creates emerging leaderships. It equips people to become leaders and build their own teams. But it also, most importantly, right, creates a way for us to consolidate our time frames and do more work in one day or one weekend than it would take us 6 months or a year to do on our own. So I'm going to explain what I mean by that in a second, okay? So just to reiterate, no matter how many plans you show, there's a reason why you're showing plans. No matter how many products you show, there's a reason that you get customers. No matter how many business plans you present, no matter how many partners you register in the business, there's a reason. And the reason that you do all that is to get the right people that want to be an entrepreneur and be a partner and become independently wealthy with this organization, or create financial freedom, at least within an organization. You need to get them to commit and attend the events, because that's where the business goes from being them in your business to them owning their own business and taking the full responsibility to be successful. And that's where duplication and compounding business happens. It's critically important to understand that that is where the rubber meets the road. That's the great divide between people that are going to make it big and people that are going to plane off into the sea of mediocrity. The people that make it big always attend the events, and they're always bringing somebody. The people that don't, they always have an excuse or a reason they don't make it, whether it's valid or not, and then their team duplicates them, and then they plan off in the sea of mediocrity and don't make more than a few $100 here and there. Don't get me wrong, you still make a little bit of money if you don't do it, but you're not going to do anything more than a few $100 a month. No matter how smart and how good and how powerful you are as an individual, right? You need something systemized to where nothing is dependent upon you. Here's what's important. You want people to become system dependent, not you dependent. See, if they're you dependent, now you have to do all the work. But if they're system dependent, the system does the work. I always like to tell people, if you're not using the tools, and this is the most important tool we have, events, the training events, both local events on Zoom and in person, and international conferences on Zoom or in person, whatever we can do, again, with the capabilities of the current situation of the virus and all, right? If you're not using the tools, then you're the tool. Does that make sense? See what I'm saying? If you're not using the tools, and the conferences are the tools, then you are the tool. So always remember that, right? And nobody wants to be the tool. I mean, who wants to be the tool? I don't want to be a tool. I know Kelly doesn't want to be a tool. I know Patsy doesn't want to be a tool, right? None of y'all want to be the tool, because then guess what? If you decide to take a vacation and you're the tool and everybody's dependent upon you instead of the system, guess what happens when you go away and you're what they're dependent upon? They stop. You don't have residual income. But when you use this system, that's right, Shondell. Shondell says, no, I don't want to be the tool, right? When you want to make sure this business is designed to have a perfect system that people plug into, and the tool is the system and the tools that are involved. When you think about what I require, and I'm going to talk about how I track this and how this is how I bring, and you'll hear why in a second. Team, not a tool. Hashtag team, not a tool. That's right, Maleva. That's good. I like that. So I'm going to tell you a few more reasons and why this is so powerful and what it can do for you and why it works so well. I just want to highlight here that this is something that can easily be overlooked and easily taken for granted, and easily you almost feel like when you're asking somebody to buy a ticket or commit to attend an event or take a Saturday or a weekend off, or travel to see a live event when we get back to that you feel like you're putting people out. I'm going to tell you something right now. Nothing can be further from the truth. You are actually giving them a gift that can change their life, because there's one thing that you won't understand. A lot of you on here, I mean, I'm looking here right now, the lion's share, the mass majority of people on here, the mass majority, more than 50% on this call, have never been to an international convention or a world conference. And that being said, I want you guys to realize something. You don't know what you don't know. You don't even know you don't know it. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what you don't know, and you don't even know you don't know because you haven't been there yet. And because you haven't been there, once you get there, you'll, again, or just attend, like this virtual one coming up in September, you will realize what you were missing. And you'll realize in that short 3-day weekend, like for people like Kelly and those of you who've never been to a conference, you're going to be blown away. You're like, oh my goodness, I knew this was a good company. I knew it was fun, but I only understood 5% of what I had in my hand. That is a unanimous response when people get to these conferences, live or in virtual. And that's what the universal response will be with everybody you bring to. They think they know what they're in, but they don't have a stinking clue until they get a chance to go to a live international convention and realize what they have in their hands. And what builds it up to that point is obviously the local events. So we build event to event to event to event. And by the way, just to keep in mind, every single event, we're tracking the number of people that attend. You want to track this, and that's what I'm going to get to here in a second. This is the system, this method, the strategy, the way to see if you're growing or if you're what? Plateauing, is the number of people that you have in your team that are attending. And by the way, that includes people that were placed under you from senior partners. Your team is anybody underneath of you, whether you brought them in or somebody else did, infinitely. They're your people. And you want to make sure you're tracking the number of people that are showing up, because there's certain thresholds of income that you can guarantee when you hit certain numbers of people that are attending events. Like I can tell you right now, there's numbers, and I can get with each one, but I know if you have 12 people on your left and right, not you yourself, but you and your team collectively. You don't have to get all of them yourself. You understand? You and your team collectively building the verticals. You have 12 people on the left and right that are left and right? That whether you put them in, somebody underneath you put them in, your team collectively put, where you have 12 on your left and right. You're making a minimum. You're cycling every month. I think it's impossible not to, right? And you double that, now you're cycling twice a month. Double that, 3 times a month. You have people infinitely on your left and right. They're attending events, 30, 40, 50, right? That are showing, and you only might have brought in 3, 4, 5 of them yourself. But as they duplicate, and a penny doubled every day. 2 becomes 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. It happens fast. All you need to do is make sure you're instilling and installing the process of building from event to event in your team, which guarantees your success, because you have people taking ownership that become independent at building the business, and they don't rely upon you once they are empowered and knowledgeable to be able to do it. That's what the training's doing. Also, they have the belief by meeting other people there know that they can do it too, because they met someone else that they're as smart as or smarter than, that has made it already, and it becomes real to them. It becomes real to them. So 6 months of knowledge in a single weekend, or a single day when you go to a local seminar, a single weekend when you go to a big conference. The difference of the big conference is a big conference just installs this massive amount of belief. It almost is like it installs a whole new battery into you that gives you enough energy to last 6 months until the next one. The local seminars, I always say, recharge that battery. But every 6 months, when you go to the international convention or the world conference, the big event that the company puts on, they install a new battery. Right? And then you recharge that battery every local seminar between. So and obviously you're doing the same thing for your people, making sure they're there. Remember though, you don't want anybody having to attach to your battery. You want them to have their own battery. That's why it's so important to get them to attend the event. You guys following where I'm going here? It is the single most important thing in the business, is building from event to event, leading with you, and then getting your team to do the same thing. So let's just talk about some processes that I do. By the way, here's a very important thing. When I attend, the events are also one thing that I can easily track my hours of production. So let me give you an example. Let's just say this Saturday coming up, right? There's a local seminar. It's 5 hours, right? Now, if I attend that local seminar, I have 5 hours worth of work done that day because I attended it, right? Like that's worth 5 hours. I was there. Now, here's the neat thing. If I wanted to, and if it was just me, if I wanted to get more hours, what would I have to do? I would have to take the information, and then I would have to go out and repeat those hours with my people so that they get those hours. 5 more hours to get 5 hours of Kelly. 5 more hours to get 5 more hours of Patsy. Now, all of a sudden, every time I'm trying to get my team to get 5 hours worth of knowledge and education, productivity, right? I have to go spend 5 hours to duplicate it. But watch this. I always track how many hours that I put in of work each day when I have a local seminar. And all I do is this. I'm tracking a number of people. I have a tracking sheet, right? I have a tracking sheet. And on that tracking sheet, I put the name of the event, Saturday, August 8th, Larry Rogalski, Don and Lisa Martin, right? And I'm tracking 3 things. I'm tracking the number of tickets that I purchased. Now, remember, right now it's online registration. It's a little different, right? But when you go to normal events, when we're back to normal, when all this stuff cools out, there's going to be tickets available. And you won't be able to do online registration because it's not going to be online. It's going to be back in real person, they're even better than online. But these online ones are really, really close. It's just all we can do right now, right? So you'll pre-purchase tickets. You write down how many tickets you actually sold. I always buy at least one for myself. And then at least I personally want to buy at least 2 to 3 more because I want to have those tickets so I can sell them to people once they show an interest. I don't want to have to go back and find a ticket. I'm going to pre-purchase some because I want to make sure I have them to sell to the people that I'm bringing into the business. That make sure they're interested. Make sure they're serious and they're not just messing around. If people part with $30 for a local event ticket, right now it's 15 online, right? But when they're live in person, they're 30. If they won't do that, they ain't serious, right? I mean, you won't spend $30 to learn how to make $2,100 to $3,600 a week, right? That's the reality of it, right? So that's the first thing. I want to make sure that I have tickets pre-purchased. So that's the first thing I'm tracking. How many tickets did I purchase? And then underneath that, how many I sold personally. And then I'm also tracking how many are sold in my team. And then I'm tracking the number of people actually showed up. Now, when I get there, the first parts are going to tell me how many you're going to make. The goal, the bullseye, is to get as many people in my team as possible there together with us, right? So let's just say I have 10 people that show up in my team. Some can be guests. That still counts because I bring guests to local seminars. It's probably the best place to bring a guest once they've seen a plan to understand it more. They'll get, again, months worth of education and confidence and knowledge in one weekend or one Saturday by coming as a guest. It's one of the smartest things you can do. So what happens is now I had 10 people. Now it was a 5-hour event day. Now I put 5 hours of information, of training for myself. That doesn't count as results producing. But here's what counts as results producing. All 10 people that spent 5 hours. Guess how many hours of productivity I had done that day in my business? 50. I only had to be there for 5 hours. But now I had 50 hours worth of productivity that happened in my business on that day. And all I had to do was this: sit there, sip my coffee or my water, and let somebody else train my team. Does that make sense? Now, all of a sudden, I had 50 hours with 10 guests or 10 people in my team, 50 hours worth of productivity, and I did 5 hours of what? Of education for myself. But I got 50 hours worth of productivity. I got 50 hours worth of work done that day in 5-hour window. I consolidated my time frame. Now, all of a sudden, your business starts growing, and you have your team duplicated. Now, say you have 2 people on your left and right, and they each get 10 people in their teams collectively to go. That's 22 people on your left, 22 people on your right, 44 people total at the next event. Now that's an international convention. You guys getting this? And that international convention, and I'm tracking it because that's my bullseye. That's my goal. Only reason why I share the plan is not to get people in. It's to get them interested enough and intrigued enough to want to get more information and get them to a 10-day conference so they can see the bigger picture, so they can attend a local seminar or a big conference so they can see what this is all about to decide if it's a fit for them or someone that they know. That's my goal. I don't care if they get started in the business or not. I just want them to attend the event and lead to some people, right? Lead the people, attend the event. People will register when they see it and they're right. So now all of a sudden I have 42 or 44 people, right? 44 people at the next event. And let's just say they go to a convention. And let's just say it's 8 hours a day, 3 days, 24 hours. So now, how many hours of productivity did I have? Well, I had 24 hours of training that was done over that weekend that I got. So I worked 24 hours for myself. I learned. But now I had 44 people that attended 24 hours worth of training. So I multiply them. That's 16, 16, 17, 0. Give me a second. 8. That's 6, 5, 1,056 hours of productivity that I had in one weekend that I spent 24 hours letting JR, Lauren, Lisa Martin, Andrew Weissman, Mark Ashley, and all the organization, the top leaders, do the work. And I sat there, took a sip of coffee just like Patsy just did, drink my water, take some notes, and know that I just had I'm having 1,056 hours worth of work done in my business in a 24-hour time frame because I'm maximizing my leverage. This is the reason why when you get to a certain number of people on your left and right side, not that you had to put in again, but that you and your team collectively put in, when you hit certain numbers of people, they're all there. And those 44 people that were there are now transitioning from being in your business to being in their own business. They're taking ownership, right? They're building success and they're evolving as a leader because when they take ownership and they're thinking, man, Don, you're slowing me down. Get out of my way. I can't wait for you to show the plan for me in 2 days. I need to do it now. Another leader has been born. And the only reason why that happened is because you made sure that they were plugging into the system and they were learning, and you couldn't do the work in 6 months yourself what the event can do for you in 1 day. That's the magic of the business. And it also does so much for our psyche, so much for our heart, so much for our confidence and posture when we have a team of people that understand the business to the level and the depth that you understand it yourself because you've been there, they've been there, and it's almost like this. You not only get a battery, a new battery at an international convention, and you go to the local seminars to recharge that battery every 6 weeks, and that battery only has about a 6-month lifespan. You have to get a new one at the next conference. But there's another thing that you get. You make sure your team, by the way, that battery is enough to charge you up, and there's also enough energy in that battery to help your new people for the first month or so until they get to their first event and get their own battery. But remember, people are going to hook into your battery. You need to make sure that they get their own battery installed so they don't need to suck off of your battery anymore. The battery only has so much power to it, right? And then every 6 months you recharge it. But here's the second thing those events do. They also install a bulletproof vest on you. So not only do you get a battery with all the energy, but they install a bulletproof vest. Meaning up until people go to a first conference, they're still not sure. I know what you're thinking. I know a lot of you haven't been to a conference yet. You're still not, you don't have the swag and confidence like I have yet because you haven't been to events. And no, it's a guarantee that you're going to make it if you just do the work. You're like, well, what if I do the work? I know what you're thinking. I've been there. If you haven't been to an event, man, what if I do the work and it doesn't work? Well, what if my friends don't want to do it? Well, what if, yeah, they say it probably work, but maybe it won't work for me. I know what you're thinking. I've been there until I went to my conferences and I committed to the audio every day, a couple Zoom interactives every week. Again, that would be live before, but now it's on Zoom Interactive. One training seminar every 4 to 6 weeks from a local level, 1 day, and then a full weekend every 6 months. When I committed to that and I did that for 2 to 3 years, there is nothing that can convince me otherwise that every single person has a chance to do this and can do it if they just apply themselves and follow the process we talked about tonight. But if you try to shortcut it and make it easier on people and you say, you don't have to go to the event, I'll go and then I'll teach you, that is self-sabotage. You need to empower and lift up leaders so they all do it also. And that's what it's all about. So here's what you want to do. The system is simple. The system is you buy your tickets to make sure you have tickets. Yes, one for yourself, but also you want to have some tickets pre-purchased for other people, right? Here's why. If you have tickets pre-purchased for other people, the event can't sell out. Now, right now, the virtual events can't sell out, right? But you still should do some pre-purchases. Here's the second reason why. The second reason why is if you pre-purchase a couple extra tickets, you have money out of your pocket. Now, listen to this closely. When you have money out of your pocket, how many of you, when you have money out of your pocket, you want to get it back? Right? So if you spend an extra $30, just say, or $45, say you buy 4 tickets for Saturday's local, right? Or you buy 4 tickets for the next event local that's going to be in October because we have convention in September. We're going to have a local seminar in October with Trina White, by the way, one of the top producers in the company, fastest growers, amazing woman, right? Very inspirational. You're going to buy, I always recommend people to buy extras up front. Here's why. If you buy extra tickets up front, right, you now have some leverage on yourself, and you're blackmailing yourself in a good way a little bit to go out and what? Promote that event so when they buy the ticket, you get your money back. Putting a couple extra dollars out to pre-purchase tickets makes you and reminds you to, it positions it correctly in your mind because it reminds you to go out to try to sell that ticket so you can get your money back. And that is where it needs to be. It has to be at the top of mind at every event to get people to commit to go to the event, because that's head and shoulders more important than anything else we can do. I want to get people to buy a ticket to go to the next event and have them lead to people. Everything else will come as a result of those two things. And by the way, sometimes people don't have the confidence to lead the people right away, you know, the ABC pattern, until they go to an event. That's why getting them to an event is so critical. Sometimes people need to go there to build that belief before they even are comfortable to lead you to people and get people to evaluate, regardless of them getting started or not. So that's what it's all about. So let me just recap. And you can ask some questions here. I create tracking sheets, and I'm tracking the number of tickets that I purchase myself, how many I sell myself to my own personal people, how many tickets are sold in my team, and then the number of people who actually attend. I take the number of people who attend at the end of the event, I multiply it by the number of hours the training was, then I know how many hours of production that I had that month, that day. And my goal is at the next event to make sure I have more hours than the last one. That's showing growth. That's why I call it the litmus test, right? And it's where duplication is created. It's the bullseye. If I bring in 20 people into the business and none of them go to the training, all I did was bring on 20 wholesale customers. Not derogatory about anybody that hasn't been to an event yet. You're a wholesale customer until you get to an event. That's where you become an entrepreneurial business partner, right? And that's what I want you to do, because that's going to empower you to hit the goals and levels that you want to get. Because I can't humanly do it, nor can the person that brings you in do all the work for you that you need to be able to do on your own. Again, with our assistance and help. I always tell people I'll match your effort, but I can't bridge the gap for you if you don't have that solid knowledge base to be able to handle the questions and handle the skepticism that sometimes comes along, and handle the people that are just flat out ignorant and negative, that they don't even know what they're talking about, but they give you a hard time. That's another thing that the events do, is arms you for that and gives you that opportunity and ability. So that's how that works moving forward. So create your tracking sheets, figure out how many hours of production you put in, and we're going to start talking to everybody. Hey, how many hours of production did you have on Saturday? Right? So right now, you know, you have the next event Saturday. If you're not registered, stop fooling yourself. Get registered. Get on the link, register yourself, and pre-purchase the tickets. That's one of the most important things. Because here's what might happen. If you don't pre-purchase, something comes up that day, if you don't have a couple bucks out of pocket, you can make the excuse. I know how human nature is. Path of least resistance. Buy that ticket, commit, put a couple dollars out, right? 15 bucks, whatever. You know you're going to be there because you don't want to what? Burn that money for no reason, right? And it's so important to have that leverage on yourself. Buy some extras and then build from event to event, because remember, it's more important than anything else we do to get people on those events. It's the bullseye. It's a litmus test, and it's a lifeline of our business, because, man, and I'm going to tell you something. You have someone that maybe might not be, you know, I'm not sure if I'm going to stay in the business or not. I'm like, hey, go to this event on Saturday. And then after that event, if you decide you don't want to do this anymore, we'll shake hands, part ways friends. I'll help you resign. I will tell you right now, you do that, all of a sudden, they're born again in the business. That's another thing that happens at these events, by the way. That's where people get reborn as an unfranchised owner when they go to an event, especially ones that never been to one. It's like a whole new level of new battery, new bulletproof vest, and they can handle whatever is thrown at them at that point on. And by the way, they just got to build into the next one. Why? Because not only are they going to need it again, because people are going to suck the energy out of their battery, but they have to make sure their team starts getting batteries recharged for themselves, and every 6 months gets a new battery installed, plus a bulletproof vest to handle people shooting at you when you get started. I hope that makes sense. But track it, guys. That's the system. That's the framework. That's the reason why the company works so hard to provide these events. It's not because we make money on them. They are pretty much like pay for themselves. That's pretty much it. And they're independently run. The company doesn't even run the local events at all. They just run 2 big ones a year. We run them outward, but it's so imperative because that's the bloodline of the business. Without it, we don't have longevity, and also the business would be dependent upon you, and you would have to be the tool instead of the system being the tool for you, that people can plug in and meet all kinds of people from all walks of life, and instead of just a team of a bunch of wholesale customers. And that's the big difference. So anyway, that's what I have for you today. Mileva, I know we had Mileva on a few minutes ago. I believe we have Mileva on still, right? I always love going to Mileva because she says things with less words and more effectively than me. So Mileva, give me some love on this. Anything that you like to say, framed a little differently, you know, to help people get the message in your perspective.
Just do it. No, seriously, guys. I mean, I'm the perfect example of someone who I never missed a major event. I didn't build the business for like 5-6 years. I was a wholesale customer for years, retailed a little bit, dipped my toe in here and there, but timing wasn't right and I didn't have the discipline. And sometimes you have to hit a low before you can grow, right? But for me, I'm the perfect example of I'm still here because I never missed a major event. I went to local seminars. Even when I wasn't going to all of the events, I never missed a major one. Why? Because it gave me enough belief in myself, that in what I could move forward with, but also gave me enough belief in the people that I surrounded myself with. And there was a new Mileva that I had to become before I was ready to take on this business. And those trainings not just did stuff for me in this business, but also did things for my freelance career, you know, made me a better businesswoman, made me a better, just made me a better person. You know, the growth that you experience, this business makes you grow, you know? And so, I mean, I really can't sum it up any more than Don had said, other than, you know, if anybody's on this call or anybody ever asks you or tells you that they don't think they need this they don't think they need the trainings, that just tells me they've never been. Because you don't listen to an audio or you don't show up to a training without going, do you know what? I needed this. I needed this not just for my Market America business, but I needed this for my life. I needed that energy. I needed to surround myself with people that were going the same direction as me. I needed to see stories on that stage of people that made it and are going the direction that I want to go, so I can see that it's possible. Like, that's what you needed. It's something so special that we get in this business that no other career really gets. You don't get people like standing on stage that are just like you, that are your peers, that are telling you exactly what they did to be successful, so you can too. Like, there just doesn't exist. And so I don't want to go on and on, but it's just they're so special, and what it does for your brain and your heart and your soul. You know, it's more than just business. It's a community, and that's something that we're all a part of, but you don't really get to feel a part of it until you're there. So the fact that you get to feel a part of something, but also help you grow and hit whatever goals or desires you have for your life, is pretty spectacular.
I love it. Thank you, Mileva. That was awesome. And also, guys, it's a measuring stick. It allows you to know, again, repeating it again, where you're at in your success by the number that are attending. And it stands true. It's a statistical and numerical guarantee. When you hit certain, and if anybody wants to go through this to know what your numbers need to be to guarantee 6 figures, I'll go with you. I'll say this is what you have to do to cycle once a month, twice a month, 3 times a month, and then 6 figures. And that's a number of people. Not that you have to get your entire team collectively working together gets down your left and right side, you know, as people lead to people, as it duplicates and compounds. It's a statistical guarantee. It's impossible not to make it, because you have enough people stepping up and taking ownership and becoming independent, and they're equipped. They're equipped to run the business with or without us. And that's really what it's all about. So that being said, I think we got in detail. And you know, again, what we're going to start doing is make sure that we are tracking. We're tracking how many hours of production each and every one of you have in your business. So when you guys have an event, I'm going to, after Saturday, I'm going to reach out to a lot of people and say, how many hours of production do you have yesterday? Right? How many hours of production did you have yesterday? And you guys, if you can't just spit it off the top of your tongue, you're not tracking it, and you are actually hurting yourself because you're not effectively tracking the most important aspect of the business, which is getting your people attending these events, trainings, seminars, sessions. You want to know the reason why people that are not very smart can make a lot of money in this business? Because they don't think so much, and all they do is what they need to do. Some of the ones that make the most money, some people might think they're not that smart of people. But you know what? The reason why, no matter how smart or witty or sharp they are, all they did was work to get as many people to the events as possible. The events does all the work for them. And that's why people can make so much money, because the system does the lion's share of the heavy lifting for them. They don't have to be smart. The events does all the work for them, and it creates duplication and independent success so that people don't need them. They can go out and do it without them. That's what it's all about. And man, the system's a tool instead of them being the tool. So that is that. Do we have any questions about anything we talked about? So obviously, here's the step of action, and we'll go to questions. So the action steps. Number one, do you have tickets for Saturday? Yes or no? See, the people who succeed do it. The people who fail don't. Right? And you do it prior to, not on Saturday morning, but before. And by the way, I always make sure people know you need to buy a ticket for the event, for the next event, at the prior event. So this is something that's vital. On Saturday, when you're at the local seminar, do not buy a ticket after that event is over. What we do in our team, and Maleva can back this up, is we duplicate one process. We all buy our tickets to the next event before the event we're attending ends. That is measurable, and it gets done. And here's the most important thing. Your people know you're doing it because they see you do it, especially at live events. They see you do it. But if you don't, you're going to go want to do it. If it's online, you're going to go out and do it then. So then your people know, and they're going to duplicate it. What's measured and what's visible gets done. So on Saturday,
and if there's any question on any of that, there's a great audio called The Art of Selling Tickets. And it's such an amazing audio that talks about the process of exactly what Don's talking about.
Yeah. Guys, this made me, you want to know why I was able to hit, I'm going to tell you why I was able to hit big money when I started. My first event I went to was just me. 3 weeks after I started, I was activated. I was a coordinator, actually. I had just hit coordinator that Friday. I went to my first convention. It was just me. My buddy Ed was supposed to come. He didn't buy a ticket, so he didn't show up. I bought a ticket. That's why I went. I didn't even want to go, but smartest thing ever happened. My accountant made me buy a ticket. If I didn't buy that ticket when I registered, I never would have showed up. But I went to Greensboro at the first conference. I saw that. I saw how powerful it was, right? The next event was in Florida, right? 6 months later. And I had some locals between. I had like 12 people at one event, but I had 5 people at the next event. 6 months later, I hit master coordinator because I had 5 people at the World Conference with me, which was in Tampa, which is normally in Miami every year, but that year it was in Tampa. But I had a magic moment happen at that event. I met Ben Ginder for the first time. He was a number 2 earner in the company at the time. And I asked him what the shortcut was. And he said the shortcut was to go over that ticket table for the international convention and buy 10 tickets. Now they were $200, well, at the time, $175 a piece. And he says, go over that ticket table and buy 10 tickets. And this is what he said. If when you walk away from that table, if the only thing that's inundating your mind is to sell those tickets to get your money back, if there's anything else in your mind except for that, turn around and go buy more. And he said, buy enough tickets where the only thing you're thinking about is selling those tickets to get your money back, but that'll emphasize the vitality that you'll sell those tickets to get many people down to Greensboro in 6 months as possible. So I went over that ticket table. I was a young punk kid, 24 years old, a little bit ignorant to everything. And I went over there and I spent $4,000 and I bought 21 tickets. Now here's what I did. As soon as I left that room, and I got to tell you something, I put most of that on a credit card, and another bit of those tickets, I wrote a check out that I didn't have the money behind it because it was February and I hadn't worked for 3 months in construction. But I bought those tickets and I instantly started calling people that weren't there. And I said, I talked to one of the top earners. He told me the secret. If you want to make it, you need to get yourself to the international convention in 6 months, but you got to bring people too. How many tickets do you want? The only way to do it is buy the tickets. That's the secret magic bullet. And this guy made making 80 grand a month, taught me this. And if you want to be a part of the team with me, you need to do it. And they would say, oh, I want 1, I want 2, I want 3. And I said, all right, go deposit the money in my bank account because I just wrote a bad check, right? But long story short, I created a system, a habit that all I did was emphasize getting people to go to the conference. 6 months later, guys, listen to this. I had 48 people in Greensboro at the International Convention. Within a year, I was at 6 figures after that, or right at 6 figures, right? Right at, just done, right? Why? Because I emphasized what was important. And guys, you gotta remember, I was a 24-year-old kid that didn't know anything. But the system taught my team, empowered my team, and raised leaders up so they can go do it without me. And that's how I was able to hit it, because I had things happen with or without me because of that. Do that for yourself. It makes it so much easier than you being the tool. Let the system be the tool. So anyway. All right, any questions? At all? So here's your plan of attack. Get your ticket for this Saturday if you haven't already. Most of you are. Thank you, Chanel. If you haven't already for Saturday. But also, don't forget, get your ticket to the International Convention. Now, do not go to the company yet, okay? Here's why. A lot of us pre-purchased a lot of tickets because they're limited normally when they're live in-person events. So we go out and we bought, I got 5 more personally. I sold 5 this week. But most importantly, I'm not worried about mine. I'm helping people in the team sell theirs because we always pre-purchase tickets because we want to make sure this event normally sells out, right? When we're doing it live and in person. But because it's online, there's no sellout this time. So don't go to the company to get your tickets yet. Go through your senior partner to find a ticket from somebody, right? Maleva sold out all hers. She called me for a couple. I sent Kelly hers. I have Patsy's right here going to her, you know. Go to your senior partners, and we'll make sure everybody in the entire organization sells theirs first. Remember, you'll still get your product pack, right? That comes with it, so all the value's there anyway. And then once we're out of it from the whole entire team, then we'll start getting them through, you know, from the company at that point in time. But if you don't have your International Convention tickets, remember, before the end of Saturday's event, make sure you get that ticket purchased in your hand. And also make sure you have a ticket to the next local event, which will happen October 10th. So you guys can mark that down now. So you have August 8th, and then you have September 11th, 12th, and 13th. Call out sick, dead, whatever it takes. You got to be at that event for those 3 days. And I would highly encourage you to do it with small groups of other people watching it so you can experience the event with other people. It'll also make you pay attention a little different and give the event as much respect as it deserves because you're not being distracted if it's just you. So I encourage that. If you can do that safely, do it. And then, so that's September 11th, 12th, and 13th. And then the next local event we're going to promote together for the team is on October 10th with Trina White. And by the way, just so you guys know, that's going to be the first event that Vina and her team are going to be the hosts of their first local, where they're the independent hosts. So we're going to plug into that one on, which is super exciting. Vina, you excited for that?
You have no idea. You have no idea how excited I am. And to have my first local with, I consider all of you like my team. I mean, you are my team, but I mean, to have all of you supporting me into my first local, into our team, our local team in California's first local, I could not think of a better group to be there and for us all to continue to learn together. How cool is this, Dawn? If it wasn't for the fact that we have this Zoom going on right now, you guys would not be attending this Zoom with us. I mean, this seminar with us. I would be on my own. I'd be by myself, right? But now I have my family. I always call you guys my family. So now I have all my family that's going to get to show up for our first big event. So thank you guys for plugging in. I appreciate you so much.
So be prepared to get that ticket before the end of the day. Remember, none of us, this team, we are leaders. This organization is the most to me, not only most talented, but I think we're already one of the fastest growers in the whole company. Now we have to make it like I'm competitive. That's just how I am. So whether you know it or not, you're on one of the most competitive people on planet Earth's teams, and I'm gonna push it like that. That's how I do it. If you don't like it, don't answer my phone calls. But if you like being a competitor and you want to be a champion and lead and answer my calls, and I'm gonna be like your favorite personal trainer that you love to hate and hate to love. You know what I'm saying? That's just how I roll. So that's how we do it. And I'm excited. So any other questions about the system of tracking, about anything else? If you ever need help selling a ticket or getting someone to commit, call us. That's the best way to use a third party, because I can tell it's the most important, vital thing we can do over and above anything else in the business, is to get people to attend these events. Because if you don't, they don't know what they have in their hands, and they can disappear. And it's only because you didn't do them right by making sure they got to an event, even if they want to fight, kicking and screaming. Man, I would have no problem tricking somebody to get to an event if I had to, because it can mean a life changer for them if they just get there. You know, nothing wrong. Ask Ray Yedman about his first event he ever attended. His brother told him it was like 40 minutes away. 2 hours later, he's like, "Yo, man, where are we going?" We ended up being in Harrisburg. His brother told him it was just past King of Prussia. I didn't tell him to do that, but it was the best thing that ever happened to Ray and his brother, because he got him to an event. You know, it is. I didn't trick you. You just did it, Vina. I didn't trick Vina. I just said she had to be there, and she was like, "All right, I'll come." She loved it. I tricked some people, but I didn't trick Vina. She's just pretending. She's playing. But if I did, I'd be proud that I did anyway. So anybody else? Any questions or anything? Clarifications?
Will there be any will there be any laughs?
There's always laughs, Joel, especially when you're there, brother.
Oh, okay.
No snacks?
Yeah. What about some snacks? Yeah.
Could be some snacks too.
What about some snacks?
So was there an actual tracking sheet, or we just make up our own?
I would just say create your own. Here's what I
Okay.
noticed. Yeah, create your own. Here's why. If you create your own tracking sheet, you're going to keep track of it. If you use somebody else's, sometimes you want to own the tracking side of it. You know, that's one thing I've learned over my career. You guys believe I used to create all kinds of tracking sheets. What I found over my career is if I created them for other people, they wouldn't own them the same way. But if you create your own, guess what you'll probably do? You'll probably track it, you know, because you own the tracking yourself. Same thing with challenges and stuff like that. Oh, that's another benefit of the challenges, the trainings too. Almost every training has a challenge. It's a contest. It takes a 2 to 3 year plan and chops it up into a bite-sized 1 month piece. And we celebrate everybody who achieves the challenge at the event and recognize them because they're on the track of the 2 to 3 year plan. So that's another thing that's really important about going to events too. Boom. Go for the challenge. There was not a challenge for this event. But 99.9% of the time there will be. It was just thrown together last minute to replace that convention got moved back. But, you know, but normally every event, there will be for Trina, Vina. We'll make sure Trina White's local for October 10th has a challenge, and we'll write that together for Vina's event. Support you. All right, guys. Well, listen. Remember, from this point on, we're going to ask you, how many hours of productivity did you have on Saturday? We're going to make sure you're going to be there. If you're not there, we're going to look at you like you're crazy. We're going to look at you squirrely-eyed. We're going to wonder what planet are you on, because it's that stinking important to be at those events, set the precedent, and expect people to go. So anyway, that is all I have for you guys tonight. I'm going to end the recording.